Brothers and sisters, hello and welcome to Readings with Regina. I have a lot to share with you today, so I'm going to get right into it. But first, I want to remind you that this is a kind of a somber day, December the 4th. December the 4th, 1969. Fred Hampton, the great Fred Hampton, was murdered by the CIA by way of the Chicago police. Not only was Fred Hampton murdered on this day, so was the captain of the Peoria branch of the Black Panther Party for self-defense, Mark Clark. Fred Hampton was 21 years old and brilliant and brave and courageous. He's a hero. Mark Clark, head of the Peoria branch of the Black Panther Party in Chicago, was 22 years old. I am so happy that his sister, Gloria Clark Jackson, wrote this book about her brother, because people often remember Fred Hampton, but they don't know about the great Mark Clark. And the movie Judas and the Black Messiah did not do Mark Clark justice. I didn't like the actor who played him. I didn't like how he talked. I did not like the Mark Clark character. This is Mark Clark. This is that brilliant, brave, heroic brother, head, a captain of the Black Panther Party in Peoria, Illinois. This is why the pigs made sure that they killed these two brothers. Mark Clark, I want you to get that book. Fred Hampton, I want you to know about Fred. To this day, we don't know how Fred fed thousands of children every day in Chicago. He was brilliant. And what this country concentrates on removing is brilliant Black people. Hello. Yeah, just like they trying to kill Mumia Abu-Jamal. He's still in prison. He done over 40 years in prison. That is unconscionable. Unconscionable, people. And I really want you to understand that. Now let me show you some more heroes who are making sure that we free Mumia. Love that. In fact, I'm going to play that again for you all before I go to the readings. Right on. Listen. Look at the banner floating by below. Go to those websites. See what you could do to help these fabulous marchers who are marching to free Mumia. Because just like the police, the CIA, COINTELPRO killed Fred Hampton, killed Mark Clark. They want to kill Mumia by keeping him incarcerated, just like they did H. Rap Brown, who became the Imam, Jamil Alameen. That's what's up, people. Get involved. Do what you can do for your heroic people. Understand me now. This is critical because this country wants you to go to sleep, wants you to not be involved in what people did during the 1960s to make this country more equitable. Not that it became more equitable for Black people, but this is important that each one help the other one. Each one teach one. Be involved. Okay, I'm going to go to the reading and I'm going to, I want to show this. Yes. Blessings to you, Sa'a. Blessings. I'm glad you're here. All right, here we go. Now, okay, people, do get ready for this. This is going to be a little hard. Let me find this. All right, today I got to read the slave ship. Got to read the slave ship because it is from the slave ship where the African later became the Negro. You got to know this history. And this author, Marcus Rediker, go to his website. Great scholar. He did us a service. Who would have thought to go to the ship's logs and read what those ship captains of slave ships wrote about their cargo, because that's what we were to them. Cargo, property. Understand that, people. I know it's difficult. I feel you. And when I read this for you today, I'm going to have to really talk to you after I read this section because you're going to feel very bad. I'm, just letting you know what to expect. But I don't want you living in obscurity. I want you to know your history because your enemies don't want you to know this. Boom. Here we go. This is the slave ship. Remember Captain Tomba from yesterday? Not yesterday, from Tuesday? Hey, he's the one that was burning down villages in Africa when the chiefs were cooperating with the enslavers. He was a bad dude. He's heroic, and I want you to know about him. All right. Captain Tomba. Captain Tomba was eventually purchased by Captain Richard Harding and taken aboard the Robert of Bristol. Chained and thrown into the lower deck, he immediately plotted his escape. He combined with 3 or 4 of the stoutest of countrymen. That was a quote. When they say stout, they mean physically in great health. Think of Muhammad Ali or think of any big football player or boxer that you know. Okay. Now, so he was considered stout, right? And when he went aboard the slave ship or was taken aboard the slave ship, he combined with 3, quote, or 4 of the stoutest of his countrymen. So he got with 3 or 4 some other big bad brothers. Boom. Plotting their escape. And an enslaved woman. Now check this out. An enslaved woman who had freer range about the ship and hence better knowledge of when the plan might be put into action. One night, the unnamed woman found only 5 white men on deck, all asleep. Through the grating, she slipped Captain Tombe a hammer, so to pound off the fetters and, quote, all the weapons she could find, she gave him. Captain Tomba encouraged the men below decks, quote, with the prospect of liberty, end of quote. But only one and the woman above were willing to join him. When he came upon 3 sleeping sailors, he killed 2 of them instantly with, quote, single strokes upon the temples, end of quote. In killing the 3rd, he made commotion. that awoke the two others on watch as well as the rest of the crew, sleeping elsewhere. Captain Harding himself picked up a handspike, flailed at Tumba, knocked him out, and, quote, laid him at length upon the deck, end of quote. The crew locked up all three rebels in irons. When the time came for punishment, listen to this very carefully. When the time came for punishment, Captain Harding weighed, quote, the stoutness and worth, the economics, the stoutness and worth, end of quote, of the two male rebels and decided it was in his economic interests to, quote, whip and scarify them only, end of quote. He then selected, this is the captain of the slave ship, he then selected three others only marginally involved in the conspiracy, but also less valuable. We're talking about economics here. Maybe these guys were kind of skinny or whatever. Boom! And used them to create terror among the rest of the enslaved aboard the vessel. These he sentenced to, quote, cruel deaths, end of quote. He killed one immediately, this is the captain, and made the others eat his heart and liver. The woman, quote, he hoisted up by the thumbs, whipped and slashed her with knives before the other slaves till she died. Captain Tomba was apparently delivered at Kingston, Jamaica, with 189 other enslaved people and sold at a very high price. His subsequent fate is unknown. Now, this is what we're going to do. I know you feel terrible about Sister Girl. Hoisted up by a thumb, okay? And then slashed. I know you feel bad. I felt bad when I first read this. Alice Walker read this and she said she had to go to bed for a few days. No. Boom. So this is what you do, my people. You light a candle for that unknown sister. Yes, you take deep breaths for that unknown sister. You write a poem for that unknown sister. You do a dance for that unknown sister. You write a song for that unknown sister who got together with Captain Tomba and they were planning their escape from the slave ship. Hello, you want to talk about courage? That's courage. You want to talk about heroics? That's heroic. All right, now, this is how I want you to think, my people, because this is important. The mind will always go towards the worst. That is a part of being human. I want you to learn how to control your emotions. Control when you hear something terrible. Control it. Calm it down. And remember, even though they didn't make it, other people did, or we would not be here. I also want you to remember that the slave captain, the captain of the slave ship, the Bristol, you know it was from England. I want you to think about who built the slave ships. And I want you to think about the fact that he knew these other Africans were not involved, but he killed them anyway. Why? Because Captain Tumba would bring him more money because he was a big dude. You dig? And those who wanted free labor, they wanted big, strong, healthy men. Healthy women too, but we're talking about the brothers here. All right, let's go to Linda Brent. There she is, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Remember, as I said on Tuesday, this is after the resistance of our enslaved ancestor, Nat Turner. Now, Linda and the other people in the town, they had nothing to do with Nat Turner's rebellion. Oh, but this is how the white people treated them. They dressed all up, all these poor whites dressed up or didn't, or dressed down, whatever. Some of them didn't have hats, some of them didn't have shoes, but they had white supremacy. Yes, they thought they were better than the black people. They were better than the N words. They were emulating the oligarchs that owned land and property. Here we go. So they're going through the town, terrorizing the black people. I entertained no positive fears about our household because we were in the midst of white families who would protect us. You see this? Linda and her family, they can't protect each other. Remember that, black people. They had to get somebody white to protect them against other whites. We were ready to receive the soldiers whenever they came. It was not long before we heard the tramp of feet and the sound of voices. The door was rudely pushed open, and in they tumbled like a pack of hungry wolves. They snatched at everything within their reach. Every box, trunk, closet, and corner underwent a thorough examination. A box in one of the drawers containing some silver change was eagerly pounced upon. When I stepped forward to take it from them, one of the soldiers turned and said angrily, "What do you follow us for? Do you suppose white folks is come to steal?" End of quote. I replied, quote, "You have come to search, but you have searched that box, and I will take it if you please." End of quote. At that moment, I saw a white gentleman who was friendly to us, and I called to him and asked him to have the goodness to come in and stay till the search was over. He readily complied. His entrance into the house brought in the captain of the company, whose business it was to guard the outside of the house and see that none of the inmates left it. This officer was Mr. Litch, the wealthy slaveholder whom I mentioned in the account of neighboring planters as being notorious for his cruelty. He felt above soiling his hands with the search. He merely gave orders, and if a bit of writing was discovered, it was carried to him by his ignorant followers who were unable to read. See the importance of reading? My grandmother had a large trunk of bedding and tablecloths. When that was opened, there was a great shout of surprise, and one exclaimed, quote, "Where'd them damn niggers get all this sheet and tablecloth?" End of quote. My grandmother, emboldened by the presence of our white protector, white protector, white protector, said, quote, "You may be sure we didn't pilfer 'em from your houses." End of quote. Quote, white dude. "Look here, mammy," said a grim-looking fellow without any coat, quote, "you seem to feel mighty grand 'cause you got all them fixins. White folks ought to have 'em all." This is how they felt. This is how many of them feel now. His remarks were interrupted by a chorus of voices shouting, "We's got 'em! We got 'em! And this here yellow gal got letters." Talking about Linda. There was a general rush for the supposed letter, which, upon examining, understand this, people, reading was illegal. That's one of the reasons I created Reading with Regina, because I want my people to read more. I want you to encourage your children to read more. Get them off the computer. Get them off of television. Get them off of just wanting to go to the movies or the club. Reading was illegal. This white dude back in the 1800s thought he had a legal right against Linda because she could read. Please understand the importance of reading. There was a general rush for the supposed letter, which upon examination proved to be some verses written to me by a friend. In packing away my things, I had overlooked them. When their captain informed them of the contents, they seemed much disappointed. He inquired of me who wrote them. I told him it was one of my friends. Quote, "Can you read them?" he asked. When I told him I could, he swore and raved and tore the paper into bits. Negroes were not supposed to learn to read. Quote, "Bring me all your letters," said he in a commanding tone. I told him I had none. "Don't be afraid," he continued in an insinuating way. "Bring them all to me. Nobody shall do you any harm." Understand, all this is about reading, my people. Seeing I did not move to obey him, his pleasant tone changed to oaths and threats. "Who writes to you, half-free niggers?" inquired he. I replied, "Oh, no, most of my letters are from white people. Some request me to burn them after they are read, and some I destroy without reading." People, do you see how significant reading was during the enslavement period? People, do you see that they did not want smart black people? The very opposite of what I want today. I want highly intelligent black people, highly intelligent black youth. This is what I want, and this is what the great Ida B. Wells, born just after slavery, her parents had taught her to read and write. She carried herself with such good character. She is heroic. I haven't told you what all she's done. I'm reading her autobiography. Ida B. Wells. Now listen at this. Listen how people talk about her. And she's in her 20s, like Mark Clark and Fred Hampton were. These are all young people. They want to kill the youth. Okay. Remember now, on Tuesday, I said she met Fred Douglass. Yo, we all know Fred. I read him. Okay. In every way he could, Dr. Simmons encouraged me to be a newspaper woman. And whatever fame I achieved in that line, I owe in large measure to his influence and encouragement. The following extracts from kind friends who wrote about my work at the time will show that I had some little success. The Afro-American Press, published in 1891 by I. Garland Penn, who is now and has been for years Secretary of the Freedmen's Aid Society of the the Methodist Episcopal Church. This is what he wrote. Miss Wells's first article was a write-up of a suit for damages at the request of the editor of The Living Way, and to which she contributed for 2 years. This introduced her to the newspaper fraternity as a writer of superb ability, and demands for her services began to come in. T. Thomas Fortune, you should look him up. T. Thomas Fortune of the New York Age, after meeting her at the press convention, wrote of her, "She has become famous as one of the few of our women who handle a goose quill," that was the pen, "with diamond point as easily as any man in newspaper work. If Iola were a man, she would be a humming independent in politics. She has plenty of nerve and is as sharp as a steel trap. She is now regular correspondent of the Detroit Plain Dealer, Christian Index, Jackson, Tennessee, and the People's Choice. She edits the home department of, quote, Our Women and Children, end of quote, of which Dr. William J. Simmons is publisher. Decidedly, Iola is a great success in journalism. She's only in her 20s. And we can feel proud of a woman whose ability and energy serve to make her so. She is popular with all the journalists of Afro-American connection, as was seen by her election as Assistant Secretary of the National Afro-American Press Convention at Louisville 2 years ago, and her unanimous election as secretary of the recent Press Convention, which met in Washington, D.C., March 4th, 1899. In summing up her character as a writer, we can but say amen to what Miss Lucy Smith says of her in the following. Miss Ida B. Wells, Iola, that was her pen name, has been called the Princess of the Press, and she has well earned the title. No writer, the male fraternity not excepted, has been more extensively quoted. None struck harder blows at the wrongs and the weaknesses of the race. I'm going to stop right there. You see what good character does? I want all of my listeners to have good character. I want them intellectually strong. I want you to raise strong children. I want you to teach your children about land ownership, property ownership. That is very important. Very important. All right, I'm going to go now to Asada. Asada. You know, she left us this year in September. Asada is now an ancestor. She too is heroic. And I left off on Tuesday. Where am I? Oh, she has entered elementary school. Okay, here we go. I entered third grade in PS 154 in Queens, New York. The school was almost all white, and I was the only black kid in my class. Everybody in my family was glad I was going to school in New York. Quote, the schools are better, end of quote, they said. Quote, you'll get a better education up north than in the segregated school down south, end of quote. School up north was much different for me than school down south. For one thing, the teachers, they were all white. I don't remember having any black teachers until I was in high school, were always grinning at me. And the older I got, the less I liked those grins. I didn't have a name for them then, but now I call them the little N-word grins. She actually says nigga. What can I say? My third grade teacher was young, blonde, very prissy, and middle class. Whenever I came into the room, she would show me all 32 of her teeth. But there was nothing sincere about her smile. It never made me feel good. There was always something unnatural and exaggerated about her behavior with me. On my first or second day in class, she was teaching us penmanship. Quote, does anybody know how to make a capital L in script? End of quote. She asked. Nobody raised a hand. Timidly, I did. You know how to do it? She asked incredulously. Yes, I told her. We had that last year down south. Well, come and write it on the blackboard then, she told me. I wrote my pitiful little second grade L on the blackboard. After looking at me and nodding, she made a big fancy L next to mine. Is this what you're trying to make, Joanne? Her expression was smug. The whole class broke out laughing. I wanted to go somewhere and hide. After that, it seemed that every time I mentioned something I learned down south, she got mad. She never saw my raised hand. When she couldn't ignore it, like when no one else raised theirs, she would say something like, oh, do you know the answer, Joanne? Every holiday, a class was assigned to put on a play. There were plays for Columbus Day, The Enslaver, Halloween, which I've never understood. Oh, by the way, this is me commenting. This is not Asada. Thanksgiving, I just told y'all about Thanksgiving. Boom, a mental genocide. Christmas, I ain't touching that. Our class had George Washington's birthday, and our play was about his cutting down this cherry tree when he was a little boy. I was selected to be in the play. I was tickled pink. Now, see how we take on American language, because black people can't turn pink. Dig. Ho, white people turn pink. But all of us are speaking English that has been presented by white enslavers to us. All right. I was tickled pink and so proud. I was cast as one of the cherry trees. The teacher put some green crepe paper over my head and told me to stand at the back of the stage, where I was to stay until the end of the play. Then the cherry trees were supposed to sway from side to side and sing, George Washington never told a lie, never told a lie, he never told a lie. George Washington never told a lie, and the truth goes marching on. Uh-huh. I didn't know what a fool they had made out of me until I grew up and started to read real history. Not only was George Washington probably a big liar, but he had once sold a slave for a keg of rum. Here they had this old crack-out slave master who didn't give a damn about black people, and they had me, an unwitting little child, doing a play in his honor. When George Washington was fighting for freedom in the Revolutionary War, he was fighting for the freedom of whites only. Rich whites at that. After the so-called revolution, you couldn't vote unless you were a white man and you owned a plot of land. The Revolutionary War was led by some rich white boys who got tired of paying heavy taxes to the king. It didn't have anything at all to do with freedom, justice, or equality. Now, okay, I'm going to stop right here. And let me also say this about George Washington, because a friend of mine, Diane Turner, she wrote a book about old George, because George hunted down one of his enslaved women on a judge. He couldn't believe that she had escaped from him. Ho! He hunted her down for years. Now I wonder why old George did that. I think you can imagine. All right, last thing I'm going to say, I'm going to read a poem by Julia Wright. She's talking about Gaza, but this poem could be for the Sudan, for Darfur, for Yemen, okay, for the occupied Haiti. Understand that there are genocides going on around the world. Let me pull up. Mumia writes about this or has written about this. Genocide in Darfur, okay, started in 2002. All right, they are genociding civilians. It is awful. But this is the deal. Behind all the genocide, just like we see in Gaza, the United States has a hand in it, and so does Israel. Think about it, people. All right. Here's the poem. It is called What the Rubble Yields. Rubble everywhere, the color of despair. As far as the eye can see, here children build gray dirt castles. Far from the beach, many cannot reach. Other children go on a treasure hunt with happy cries in their collapsed home to dig for their toys, some clothes, and a teddy bear, the worse for bombing wear. Elsewhere, in a daily labor of love, a man crazed with grief goes back every day to his bombed house to dig for his wife, and today, after a month, he has found her kefaya. Everywhere, young and old have lost the layout of their rooms, as beloved, remembered space becomes a labyrinth that traps them even in their sleep. Just now, out of a ruin where there were thought to be no survivors, a baby was found. It is quickly swaddled. It moves, and its lips are not blue, and it smiles. And look at this picture. Hope y'all can see it. But see, we see the genocide in Gaza. We may not see the genocide in the Sudan because that's black people. And the UAE, look up these terms, supported by America, are committing that genocide. All right, people, I went over a little longer than I wanted to, but I did want you all to understand the significance of this day. Fred Hampton, Mark Clark, my Panther brothers. were murdered on this day in 1969. They were 21 and 22 years young. They want your babies. Understand that. Teach your children to be scholarly. Teach them to read. Have reading circles. All right. Really learn this system. I'll be talking more about that another time. Well, brothers and sisters, it's time for me to, check out of here. Remember that you are much loved by me. That's why I created this program. I want you to spread the love. I want you to spread revolutionary love. And I want you to read as much as you can. I want you to learn how this system actually works. Do share my videos with other people, not because I want to just be exposed. No, I want to implant in our people today the significance of reading and how reading was kept from us. It was illegal for many years. I want you to understand that. And I also want you to understand that. Let me show my girl. Thank you. Yo, hey, I want you to understand the significance of it because I want you to be able to control the space that you have that God gave you on this earth. All right, people, I will see you next Tuesday, and I look forward to that time with you. Bye now.